time for change is coming sooner than expected when it comes to the materials we use for energy, like fossil fuels that harm the earth. There's a clock in Manhattan where it counts down the time where climate change will become irreversible to the point where we can't go back. So it shows right here we only have 7 years to fix the climate. This is scary because in recent years, uh, the clock has been adjusted to have less time. I come to y'all as a supporter of nuclear energy and hope for y'all to switch to nuclear energy and change thoughts and feelings about it. Because as a generation, as a young generation, we we will face climate change. We will face climate change. This is evident because the amount of hurricanes that have been increasingly getting stronger and the number of them has gone up over the years because the water is getting warmed up by 2.05 degrees Fahrenheit since the 19th century. As a fisherman, I like to go out to the jetties, Surfside, and Quintana, where you catch fish, but it's apparent every summer that it's hotter this year than last year. So I hope to change y'all, the audience, opinion about nuclear energy, and hope that y'all y'all will come to support it. I'm gonna do this by refuting myths that a lot of people believe. So the first myth is that society is still against nuclear energy, majority against nuclear energy. Secondly, solar panels are the safest way to get renewable energy and with no harm to the earth. Thirdly, nuclear energy is harmful for the environment. So imagine you're in the year 2040, 20 years from now, and smog has become the new norm in America for large cities and rural urban areas. And add in hot weather, every year rising temperatures, tides rising, and more hurricanes and tropical storms seeming that it's becoming a whole yearly thing. So it becomes normal for us at the coastline. So the first myth is that nuclear energy is still majority negative. But in reality, over the years, it has been shown that people are more open to it and more supportive to nuclear energy because people started to educate themselves about nuclear energy. From the article, The Feasibility of a Nuclear Renaissance, trends show a correlation between amoralization and the sentiment and education. Amoralization is the act of improving something. So, the improvements that I'm talking about are nuclear power plant models, waste management, and research improvements that have happened over the years because of scientists and engineers. Knowing this, people are more open to nuclear energy and are much more supportive of it. And also, people on the opposing side have considered nuclear energy because of the benefits outweighing the risks. The negative outlook on nuclear energy is because of what happened in Chernobyl and Fukushima, where the power plants failed and leaks happened. So the opposers are considering the avenue of nuclear power energy because the reliable energy, because it'll be a source of reliable energy, sustainable energy, and it will reduce the emissions per year around the world. So quoted by the same article as before, even when nuclear accidents such as Fukushima Daiichi accident are taken into account, people increasingly believe that nuclear energy usage has more benefits than risks. But still, there's people that are still negative against it no matter what. So they try to go out and try to find other routes. And the most popular one is solar energy, with specifically solar panels being used to collect solar rays. So myth two is that solar panels are the safest way to get renewable energy and with no harm to the environment or us. But this is false, like the other statements before. The reason is the panels have metals that affect the environment negatively and us negatively if we inhale it. It is shown that solar panels have harmful and cancerous metals to them and to them. So when in the environment, if in landfills, not properly contained or recycled, they start polluting the ground, the water, and also us. The most common and cheap solar panel is polycrystalline PV or multicrystalline. This is the most cheapest that a normal person like me and you can just buy off the off Lowe's. The dangerous thing is that people and the environment are in danger because the metals that are in it are toxic and cancerous. It is shown by Bang in his article and research. Polycrystalline PV module had the highest cancer potential for freshwater, saltwater, and natural soil. And another point to point out is that there's a lack of technology with solar panels. By Bang again, referring to him as the main researcher. Furthermore, PV technology needs to develop to reduce the content of the toxic metals and displace them with non-toxic substitutes materials. So there's a lack of technology to swapping toxic metals out with non-toxic metals. So it feels like it's a product that isn't or shouldn't be available right now because of the lack of safety to it. So it just seems like swapping a problem with another much more difficult problem to handle, especially when it affects the environment, us, and like especially when it comes to the environment, it affects the soil and water. So these are the hazards. This is a polycrystalline in a flat wafer format that they put in the panels. These are the health effects with polycrystalline if broken into a fine powder and so on. So showing the ugly parts about solar panels and solar energy, it makes a person reconsider and step back. It makes them step back. But on the other hand, nuclear power energy, the most disliked source of renewable energy, has a surprising fact about it. That is that it doesn't affect the environment as much as people think. So my third myth and final myth is that people believe nuclear energy is harmful for the environment. But the truth is that nuclear energy has barely any effect on the environment. So when it comes down to nuclear energy, there is emissions, but there's a limit to the emissions. And the emissions I'm talking about are CO2 related. So when the CO2 emissions are present are during the building processes of the nuclear power plant. From an article about nuclear sustainability, nuclear power does not contribute notably to global warming because nuclear power plants do not emit greenhouse gases like CO2 during operations. Although some CO2 emissions are associated with other phases of the life cycle of nuclear power plants. So during the operation, no emissions are made. No CO2 emissions, right? This would be great because we avoid so much emissions that we need to avoid right now so that we can have much more time for our climate to recover. And usually plants operate for at least more so 20 plus years. And this is the emissions that were avoided by nuclear power, and these are in the tons, honestly. So yeah, in the tons right here. So this would help rural and urban areas that have been affected by climate change. Both areas would see a reduce in smog, and air quality would improve over time. Plus, there's going to be sustainable energy for those people and for those areas. Also, countries, they also get an improvement, especially industrial and developing countries. Stated by Mark A. and Abraham Denser, use of nuclear energy can help reduce environmental damage and contribute to sustainability in rural and urban areas and in both developing and industrial countries. That's beautiful, right? Beautiful. So third reason why we should switch is just because nuclear power avoids so much emissions. The amounts are in the ton. This is showing the amount compared to wind, hydro, solar panel, and geothermal. It does so much more than all those together. And it's per year. It's per year. So in Dufy's words and research, the over 400 nuclear power plants or reactors worldwide today avoids annual emissions of nearly 2 billion tons of greenhouse gases. In U.S. standards or metrics, it's going to be 4.4 trillion pounds of emissions that are avoided per year. This is beautiful because this was in 2007, and now with improvement of technology and research, it could be much more efficient. And it was just only 400 power plants. So we have an opportunity right now to do so much good. So in short, nuclear power has been proven to reduce emissions per year and change or emissions per year and have no effect on the environment. And we shouldn't be afraid of nuclear power because it isn't a thing that should be feared until you educate yourself. And also, solar panels aren't the safest way or route to get renewable energy because of the metals that are in the panels and how toxic they are to us and the environment if not properly recycled and contained. Also, there's a lack of technology with it. Finally, another point to point out about why we need to get nuclear power as our main source, or not main source, but you shouldn't feel like you're the only one in support of nuclear energy because in reality, there's an enormous group that is in support of it. So, nuclear energy isn't a bomb waiting to go off or waiting to happen. There's so much potential with nuclear energy and the environment's health and recovery. So, we need to do it because we don't got a lot of time left to dolly around, whatever. And also, with the excess energy, it'll improve not just the environment, but our lives as well in so many ways. So let's be the ones to educate, or not educate, we'll educate and advocate for nuclear energy. Because in the direction that we're in, we don't have enough time to dolly around. We only have 7 years. So educate yourself, friends, family, and anybody fearful about nuclear energy. Because in reality, it's not a bomb. It's nothing to be scared of. So let's be the generation that other generations look back on and say they saved the earth. Thank you for watching, and let's go green.